Hey, it's Julie. I wasn't at the book club for this chapter, and I wanted to weigh in a little bit, briefly. Okay, so the chapter opens with a couple of quotes. The first one talks about European workers perpetuating their own enslavement to capitalists, and the second one mentions the danger of confusing material historical reality and the products of the mind and our various individual temperaments. And we read about Lilica Boal. We don't get her whole backstory. She has quite a backstory. Um, Táíwò's point here seems to be it's hard to see how solidarity is workable, how you actually make it happen. Solidarity is based on a shared understanding that we're all in this together. But people who have different identities face different struggles. You can't understand them unless you've lived them. So, how can we say we're all in this together? That's the challenge. How is solidarity workable without identity politics short circuiting it? Well, this chapter is mostly about the short circuiting part, not the workable part. And so we come to what Táíwò calls deference politics. He gives an example of deference politics: the call to listen to the most affected and center the most marginalized. Táíwò is not too keen on this. And he says that standpoint theory or standpoint epistemology underlies much of what he's calling deference politics. Standpoint theory, which says that authority is based on your perspective, what you understand because of who you are, what you can know that no one else can know unless they're in the same position in society. What gender you are is a prime example. Your authority comes from your gender. Táíwò is saying that when we focus on our interpersonal interactions, which are under our control largely, we're not getting at the material consequences of racism and misogyny and so on. I found this chapter really powerful. I found the idea of attentional injustice very compelling. When we focus on who's getting attention, we're not focused on the root causes of, like Táíwò says, why everything is so fucked up. And you don't have to be cynical when someone is calling attention to identity politics. You don't need to look into anyone's personal motives when people point out attentional injustice. We point out attentional injustice for good reasons. We want to challenge the authority of the traditional elites. But when we claim to speak with authority based on who we are, our identities, we recreate the power dynamic we're trying to overturn.
Now, that's not the only way it can happen. There's nothing uniquely toxic about deference politics. Even with the best of intentions and good politics, there's a danger of recreating socially corrosive power dynamics.
Um, the famous feminist essay, The Tyranny of Structurelessness, is mentioned. We've read that essay in book club. That essay points out that in the women's movement, I think in the 1970s, among feminists trying to escape the tyrannical authority characteristic of patriarchy, that's what they were running from, in organizations whose members agreed not to treat any person as the authority, a sort of informal cliquishness took over instead, resulting in a network of insiders, elites. Exactly the power dynamic they were trying to avoid. Their authority wasn't based on their gender, they were all women. A corrosive power dynamic sprang up anyway. We should all do better in our personal interactions. When we're interacting with people who have an experience of oppression that we can't possibly understand. But do better is not a political program. It's a low bar to set. as Táíwò says. Attentional injustice is real, it matters, but we should focus on redistributing resources and power. I love this line. A constructive politics engages directly in redistributing social resources and power, rather than pursuing intermediate goals cashed out in symbols. Reparations, healthcare for all, bodily autonomy, an end to exploitation. These are all purely material demands. And as for our personal interactions, we should do better. We should listen. We should try to understand each other, but we're not ever going to. Not fully.
So if that's what we need to do to build power, understand experiences we can't possibly understand. If that's what we need to do, then we are going to remain powerless.